So yesterday, if you went to Ian Baker's talk, he talked about how difficult it is to design for service. And I believe Michelle Barryman also talked about how people use iPads or iPhones intermittently, and then over time they would just change from they might use both devices at the same time, or they would just use one and then go to the next one. So as a telecommunications service provider, we had this massive job of actually figuring out how we're going to test our services, because we have all these complex products that we needed to make sure that we could touch on each of those touch points and also test them. And we had to work within the usual constraints as a UX practitioner would have, the time frame and the budget. What we also wanted to do was ensure that whatever methodology that we use come within, we can apply it across all our services through the whole of Telstra. So it needed to be consistent and it needed to be flexible. So one of the key things that we also needed to get out of this methodology or the framework that we were getting is actually get some metrics out, because that's what our executives want to see. They want to see numbers, not the lovely the users' comments. And so there was a challenge there. How are we going to use whatever methodology we're going to use and get those metrics out? So we knew we were really good at usability testing, and what we were looking at is, okay, how can we extend this to include the services part? So very loosely, we can categorize the services provided at Telstra into these 4 segments. So it's like there's a discovery phase where they would discover about a service or a product, and they would go through the purchase process, they would use it, they would get help, which is support, and also the billing experience. So what we try to do here is, okay, how are we going to, test all the 500 different touch points we might have for a service? So we try to focus on the key aspects of the service. When I say key aspects, we try to focus on when do the user or the customer comes in and has directly contact Telstra. So these can be at a Telstra shop. They would ring up Telstra, they would go online, or they would read a brochure from Telstra. So we do understand there are other ways people get to know about our products, through media, through friends and family. We acknowledge it, but it's more of a secondary aspect at this point. So we usually try and exclude that to make it a little bit more simpler and to make sure that we can actually test something within the timeframes we have. The using, well, it's basically the standard usability testing that we conduct. And once again, we like to acknowledge we only test the key tasks here, not the secondary tasks. And we know that secondary tasks in the real world will have an impact on the service experience. But given, again, keeping within the constraints, we just only focus on the key tasks. Support, I think, is really interesting for us. Again, here focusing on that service aspect of it, because support is a major part of delivering a good service. So we tend to role play and do a service call. So I'll talk a little bit more about those as I present some of the case studies. And we also wanted to capture this billing aspect of it. If you ever experience a bill from Telstra, you might find that you can actually put all your services into one bill, and you can't kind of figure out what's what. So this is what we really want to understand, whether people actually understood the bills that we went. Is there anything that we could improve? Okay, so I want to talk about this product called Telstra Platinum. So no, this is not a typical product that Telstra would sell. It's actually a service. It's a support service. So this is actually where people can subscribe to this service and get technical assistance, so whether over the phone, or it could be live chat, or in-house calls. The reason I want to include this is it doesn't necessarily fit in with the 4 pillars that I showed you before, because really the usage of the service is really the support call. So what we did this testing at the sort of towards the end of the design phase of this product. So we tested the prototypes of how the product will be, or the service will be communicated to these users. So we used the prototype for the Telstra webpage and also prototype for brochures. Unfortunately, at this point, we didn't have the procedures in place, how we're going to approach in terms of how a person would go and talk to the Telstra shop, what the procedures for there. So we couldn't actually test that, but we actually did talk about it during the session and to get feedback, but unfortunately we couldn't actually test that. In the usage part, which is really interesting, which is what I really want to focus about, because we role-played the support call. So we tested live chat, we tested an actual support call. We got people from Townsville to play the support agent and the IVR, the interactive voice recording. And we also got them to type away the chat messages. So we actually had, one of the tasks was, okay, you have a problem with setting up your Xbox. What would you, how would you go about, getting support? So we actually gave our participants the option to select whether they want to use live chat or whether they want to use the phone, depending on whichever method they preferred. And then, of course, we looked at the billing as well. So this is typically a dashboard that we present to our executives. We kind of give them the numbers that they want, but we also what we also want to focus is what we call the BPI, which is really the issues list. So the usability issues, we rated how critical or how depending on the criticality of it. But what was really good out of this experience was that we found that apart from the standard usability issues, we found that there are issues with our services. So for example, this actually let us validate the script that we use for live chat. So the next project that we applied the service walkthrough methodology is for Telstra Cloud Services. So very quickly, Telstra Cloud Services is basically where you would go to get your virtual service and dedicated service. So it's a cloud service portal. And what's interesting here is this product was developed before we actually had an advocacy frame, and those products are actually in market. And we used this product, the walkthrough, to get a benchmark of what the actual experience is at the moment. And so this is just a quick touch points of how we went about. And what we found was, okay, virtual servers usually it's all online, whereas dedicated servers, it's more hands-on. So we actually role-played the facilitator role-played the interactions of an account executive and actually talked them through the sales process. And once again, with the support, we actually got someone from Sydney to actually play the support agent. What is interesting here is we actually tested this over time. We actually tested it over 3 weeks. And as you can see in the diagram background, what we want to try and replicate is how actually people go about using our systems over time. So for week 1, we focused on sales and pre-sales and sales. Week 2, it was around usage and assurance, and of course install. And week 3 was more about the billing, which you usually get at the end. And what we really found was the experience over time really varied. And as you can see, the numbers that we have is like for week 1 was really fantastic, and then week 2 it was really poor, and week 3 got really, really bad. So yes, we have developed a methodology that we can apply, and it's quite flexible, and we can apply to a number of different services that we have, but there are limitations.